So, how would you want me to give a little background, then question answer, or straight away question answers? Whatever way you want. You want question answers right away, yeah, or some little background, whichever way.
Can we have something with Savitri?
Yeah. Related to Savitri only.
How we can read Savitri in the mother tongue?
So let's start with a little background of Savitri. I'm sure everyone is aware to an extent, but just to set the ball rolling. So as we know, Savitri started in 1916, though its first draft is in Baroda in 1893 as soon as Sri Aurobindo comes back. But then it was a small poem titled Earth and the Beyond, which is very significant because the entire life and work and tapasya and yoga of Sri Aurobindo is how to not just link the two, but to make this earth equal to heaven. Heaven is not the, heaven of the Swarglok of the Puranas, but the higher worlds. Because this is the problem that we all, in the course of journeys through lives, our journey through lives, is the biggest challenge, is the hiatus in all spiritual thought. It's a big hiatus. Now, the hiatus is that it's all right. This world is very good for some, may not be so good for some. But in the last analysis, it ends badly. How it ends badly? We grow old. We have diseases. Things degenerate. Even the best of things do not last. Isn't it? It's not something, it doesn't require to read a scripture to understand this. Even the best of things do not last. And at the end, there is death. Full stop or comma is a different thing altogether. So it's very natural to raise a question. Why is it all? Wherefore it came? If there is a creator, then it is a imperfect creation, so to say. If we don't want to call it, very frankly, a bad joke. It's definitely an imperfect creation. It's not what, even as a human being, conscious human being, if supposing for a moment we were to create something, we would not want to create something which is riddled with all this pain and suffering. Why would we do that? Now, this has been a challenge to human consciousness, and there are several ways that people have tried to explain it. One of them is, well, this world is the creation of some mysterious Maya, or it's an illusion. Your pain is an illusion, which is very strange because at every level, even at the deepest level, the pain is real. If not yours, then you look at the world around. I mean, even if one is so extremely selfish that one doesn't experience and one's life is fine, but you look at the world around. Look at Buddha. His life was all fantastic. Yet Buddha felt the pain and suffering of the world around him and sought a solution. So it's something real. In experience, it is real. In perception, it is real. There are other ways of explaining it that, well, your own karmas, that raises still further question. We are put into this world without any knowledge. Can we deny that? That we start our journey with ignorance? Now, when you start your journey with ignorance, how much can we really blame a person? A small child, 2-year-old, suddenly pushes his mom. Can the mom say, you're being extremely disrespectful, I'm going to punish you for... he's ignorant. She will gradually explain, train, and educate. So how much can we blame human consciousness, which is so limited, and put upon it the entire burden of its own journey? There's a nice little story of Sri Aurobindo, which I love to share. When he was in Baroda, he was with the Maharaja. And once when the two were taking a stroll, an old lady was crossing the road, and she was carrying a bundle of things, and it suddenly fell, it dropped, and she started picking them up. So the Maharaja walked up there and once again tied the bundle and put it over her head and looked back at Sri Aurobindo, came back and looked at him, looking for some sign of approval. Being a Maharaja, you did this. And Sri Aurobindo says, yes, yes, this is what we have been doing so far. But this is not enough for a Maharaja to do this. Maharaja should make a system wherein such a thing is not needed. An old lady who is, carrying this burden, he says, we have been passing the burden back to the person. Whereas true divine royalty is to take the burden upon oneself. That's what is the sign of divinity. So this was Sri Aurobindo's quest, which I think all well-meaning people, if we come out of the prisms of isms, that's what I call it, and the stock things we have read, it's a natural question. We should come very naturally. And why this life is so imperfect? Why does it end in death? Why suffering comes our way? And as I said, the theory of karma is unsatisfactory. It may give some relief based on our belief system, but just imagine there are people who really are fine, but look at young people who, when they die and things happen, and to tell them you did something in some past life. Imagine if we tell Akshay bhai, you lost your luggage because of some past life karma. It is so absurd. No, I mean, any right-thinking person would not do that. And if we go that way, life would degenerate. Imagine if all of us took that approach, that a terrorist went and killed everybody. Well, your past karma, so you had to be killed. What about the terrorist? He will get his punishment in hell beyond and later on when he comes back. So this is a never-ending cycle. Who created this never-ending cycle and why? So the other option is don't think about all these questions. Man's mind cannot understand. Find a way out of this hell in which you're caught. Too selfish, sir. And again, it goes back to the question why this hell was created and who created and what for. So there are many unresolved issues in human religious and spiritual thought. Of course, in the absence of any complete answer, we accept it. We have accepted it. Because there were no complete answer, then at the end of the day, one thought, okay, doesn't matter. Let me find my own way and find an escape into some beyond, whether it be the salvation into some other world, in some Swargalok, Golok, in Vaikuntha, Kailash, or in some other world, so that we don't come back upon earth. Or else, people have taken the other route that, well, all this is all useless mental deliberation. Let us try with whatever limited means to make this world better by whatever means we have, rather than engaging with metaphysical questions. But the questions remain. They hit us again and again. So there is a gap in this entire understanding of life, of man, of world, of God, which Sri Aurobindo steps in. That's a gap, and it's a big gap. Because the whole idea of moksha at the end, at the bottom, is really speaking, if not selfish, outrightly strange that, well, this world is a world of suffering, come out of it, whatever be the cause of suffering. Of course, you analyze the cause of suffering. Every scripture says that, and then you come out. So there was a gap, and Sri Aurobindo's whole effort is to bridge that. What is the reason? We have missed something. And what we have missed is something very important. And that is, this entire world is not a static world. It's something which science had to come in and tell us. That it is a world which is by its very nature an evolutionary world. It is progressing, whether we like it or not. Progress may take strange turns and twists. It may be cyclic as it is. Then we begin to understand, the question changes. If it is moving, gatishil, yat kincha jagatyam jagat, as the Ishopanishad says it, then where is this motion leading us? Is it just a meaningless motion, or there is some truth behind it? And then through all this movement and motion, and if I may say commotion, there is something which is manifesting itself through forms and names. This is now becomes logical because we see it happening in our individual life. Example is very simple. At 5, 10, the way we experience life, for a 10-year-old or a 5-year-old getting admitted into kindergarten is world coming crashing down. For a 15-year-old, a heartbreak is like life is finished. For a 25-year-old getting married to the wrong partner, every partner is a wrong partner, depending on how you look at it. Why? Because we want fixed things. That's why. Because we want all ready-made stuff. But life is not about ready-made. It's an evolutionary life. There's nothing ready-made. There's nothing like a free lunch and given. So, and then by the time it is 50, one says, let's find the road to nirvana. So, this is the problem. So, we become wiser when we look back at 50 or 60, when we were 5-year-old and our own grandchild is going to the school. Hey, why are you crying? But that time we were much worse off. So you see, we have grown in one lifetime. When at 15, somebody has a heartbreak. We don't say, oh, life has crashed. Even though our life may have been crashed at that moment, we say, Hota hai, you will get somebody better. Don't worry. Because we have grown through that experience. We understand things. The same experience which created pain, through the application of some kind of wisdom which comes from within, changes into joy. We laugh over our, all those things that have happened in the past. So, evolution, progress is the real purpose. And this progress, as Sri Aurobindo says, is not a meaningless thing. It is taking place with a divine intent. He uses the word divine will within creation. There is a divine will which is operating. And why is this will operating? The will which can at times draw all the gopis and gopis with a flute, or it can create a Kurukshetra. What is this will doing through all this? So this will is preparing forms and names to manifest the divine who is within. Because originally the intent was Eko Ham Bahushyam. That's what the Rig Veda says. The one wanted to become many. It's not an easy task. So that this hints and possibilities which are there, Sri Aurobindo brings it out. And he says there is a divine perfection inside. This is an old story. But to bring that perfection in life, outside, in everyday life, in every event and action is the real challenge. Divine perfection is inside, and all mystics have contacted inside and come back with this story that yes, there is a divine perfection. There is a perfect state. But when you come out, how to manifest it? So therein started his great journey. We know from 1910, Sri Aurobindo had realized all the major realizations of all the traditional yoga. If you want to see what these realizations are in Savitri, since we are talking of this context, Book 1, Canto 3. You don't have to go further. Book 1, Canto 3. And if you enter Canto 4, already you will see new things have started. And Canto 5, entirely a new path. But all the realizations that yogis had, the opening of the inner centers, new faculties, the experience of the self, the realization of the self, the peace of nirvana, stillness, all of them is there. Conversing with the gods, all in one canto, Ashupati. So 1910, when Sri Aurobindo comes to Pondicherry, he has already realized all that. He had realized nirvana, he had realized the Vasudevam Sarvamiti, which is the greatest of things that the Gita speaks of. Why is he still, what is he still going, seeking? As one of our well-known, my friend and one of the most respected and loved teachers, Chotnarayan Sharma, used to give talks in Hindi. So he used to put it very interestingly. He said, when Buddha walked into the forest, leaving his palace, why did he do that? Because he had Raj Vibhuti, but not Yog Vibhuti. He's looking for that. He has the Raj Vibhuti. He has all that human beings can seek for in material life. In those days, there were no ACs and such things, car, but whatever one could provide in his kingdom, Shakya kingdom was there. And yet something is missing. But look at Sri Aurobindo. He has Raj Vibhuti. In every sense, he is hailed as the star rising in the Indian firmament. Crowds are following him. Thousands of people are touched by him. Even during Sri Aurobindo's speeches in independence, freedom movement, those days, people hailed him as an avatar, as a rishi. They were so deeply touched. He had such a brilliance in terms of that also. Anything earthly, you know, it's a dream thing to have studied in Cambridge, come back, and so brilliant. He could write. He could have easily earned millions. It was, at his doorstep. So he had Raj Vibhuti, but he also had Yog Vibhuti. He had all the major experiences. See Sri Aurobindo's poems. All the major experiences are there. Why is now he going to Pondicherry? Because he is, for that final reconciling answer, he is moved by the vyatha of mankind, but not just to give him an escape for the few. That path is already there. But to solve the problem here, the paradox is here. Up till now, we have been teaching people, find a way, there is a way. Some people take that path and they escape. Fantastic. What about this world, this earth? It remains forever like that. One of the questions that we all can ask is there in, like Isopnishat says, all over there is nothing else but the divine. This is a fundamental teaching. But then, why is it so difficult? We have to do yoga, sadhana to realize something which is our very essence. Why is it not so natural? A very nice Sufi kalam, which has been sung by Nusrat Fateh Ali, and he puts it paradoxically. तू एक गोरख धंधा है, तो है भी और नहीं भी, सब जगह है पर कहीं नहीं मिलता. This is, this is a fact. I mean, of course, the mystic, he finds him, but why so much effort, so much? It's the most natural thing. And that is the mystery of the evolution of consciousness progressively from matter to man and still beyond. And this is what Sri Aurobindo gives us. And he, through all his writings, he has, brought out this key idea of evolutionary transformation. It's an idea that can change earthly life at every level, mind you, at the most practical level. People fix things in a fixed frame. This person is like this, but when the moment you bring in evolutionary transformation, then there is a possibility of change. And it is a key idea, one of those key ideas which can change our dealing with this world, it gives us hope, it gives us courage, it gives us faith. This world is not forever condemned to be in this state. So this key idea, Sri Aurobindo reveals through all the pages. In Essays on the Gita, for example, one of the scriptures which is closest to his heart, he said the Gita is one of the best preparations for this yoga. Sri Aurobindo says that. And yet in the beginning he says that we do not belong to the dawns of the past, but to the noons of the future. So he takes, the base is the same, that there is one divine reality, which is fundamental truth in the Upanishads, the Gita, the Vedas. But then that's done already. What is the next step? So he brings that out through countless volumes, but it was not sufficient. Why it was not sufficient? Because it requires a lot of labor. To read Sri Aurobindo's works, we all know the life divine. Even to touch it requires courage. So there was a little story about Vyas, Veda Vyas, of the Vedas and Puranas and Mahabharata fame, that after having written all these wonderful books or compiling them, he is still feeling something is amiss. And in that state, he's moving around the banks of river Saraswati, and Narada asked him, what's your problem? He said, I don't know. There is some problem. He says, I'll tell you, you have written about everything, but you have not yet written about the divine avatar. This is the key element in Sri Aurobindo's yoga. If we miss it, we have missed the point. The avatar stands at the center as the head and the gate. This is a doctrine of avatarhood which we see found in, of course, in Christianity it was there, it is forgotten. Shri Krishna brings it out with what a prominence. The first time we hear about divine standing in the front of the human march, it's so beautiful. The avatar. And in Sri Aurobindo's yoga, it is the center. We may know all about the yoga, practice all kinds of meditation, but if we have not opened to the mother who is at the gate, nothing is done. So then he writes the the Bhagavad Puran. That's how, Vyasa is. And we all know what a wonderful scripture it is. One may not have read the Vedas and the Upanishads, but one reads Ved Puran jaake Shruti gave, neti neti jako Shruti gave. Sonan lal aaj janani ki bahi pakad ke chali wo sikhave. Oh, he is learning as if. So this is what Savitri is. He was actually wanting to make it very, very, very easy for us. Let me put it very paradoxically. We'll come to then naturally, but then how to read it. He wanted to make it easy for us. Metaphysics and straining the mind. So he wanted to give something which is endowed with the maximum, charged with the maximum spiritual consciousness, spiritual power, that vibration, through which by merely reading it, by absorbing those vibrations, man can arrive at what is intended. See, if you read the Isha Upanishad and Kena Upanishad and many of them, wonderful mantras. So how people wonder what is the practice given here? Nowadays, we want a practice. It doesn't say, Isha Upanishad doesn't say sit like this and meditate like this. Yet if you read the Isha Upanishad, it can take you to the realization. Sri Aurobindo had his major realization while walking in the Alipur jail, just reciting the 2 verses of the Isha Upanishad. How does it do that? Now, a mantra, a sloka is a capsule of light. Who can understand, when it is said that, yastu sarvani bhutani, atma vabhut vijanata, he who knows all this as the one becoming, tatra ko moha ka shoka ekatvam anupashyata. How to see this one? Now, when the mind enters into it, it gets lost. What is this ekatvam anupashyata? Where do I see the one? But just too many meditate on this idea that there is nothing else but one, nothing else but one, nothing else but one. So very often I share this, people say India gave to the world 0. Excuse me, India also gave to the world the power of 1. 0 pregnant with infinity, and that starts with 1. They are not 2, 0 and 1. The entire computer world is based on that because it's the fundamental truth of existence. So this one, by meditating upon these verses, one suddenly has a door which opens. That's what these verses were meant for. Not so much to be interpreted as to be just felt inside the heart. Because what is the mantra? Sri Aurobindo explains it beautifully. Mantra is something which rises from this is the seed, because this is the seed of the creator. Mantra is not born from the mind. It rises from the heart. And when this consciousness goes further in the higher and higher worlds, there the Rishi receives the mantra. It's a revelation. It's not written by the mind, okay, let me write about how best I can express that. Probably there is one divine everywhere. That's usual standard books. So mantra carries within itself the vibration that can help us realize what it contains. That's why we see in Savitri, page 365, as when the mantra sings in yogas here, it reveals. It just stirs the brain. And we may not understand the meaning, but slowly and slowly it begins to hit us from inside. I take this example. When people take wine, the older it is, and slowly it hits you. In the beginning, you may not feel the kick, but as you take it, it begins to hit us from within. So mantra works like a capsule of light and delight. It opens an inner door simply because it contains that vibration of sound. And the mothers, after all, we all know Nath Brahman, the power of the sound. So Sri Aurobindo wanted the sound vibrations, rhythms to embody the highest possible vibration, which he called the overmind, and beyond is the supermind. Supermind cannot be expressed in human language. But the highest possible sound vibration through word symbols, that is Savitri. It is his gift to us. And that's why Sri Aurobindo spoke of Savitri as the most important work. And the mother went on to say, Savitri is the message, all the rest is preparation. And she said, if you read, just read Savitri. She has used the word, just read Savitri. It can take you to the highest realizations of yoga without the need of an outer guru. And I have had some, I think I've shared all this, so I won't share again. So many wonderful experiences, not only with myself is okay, but people who just don't know about it. The music of Savitri, the power of Savitri. And people have received it and their life changed. Of course, I must say that it is a big grace if Savitri can come into one's life and one has opened and read it. बिनु हरि, जैसे कहते हैं ना, बिनु हरि कृपा मिला ही नहीं संता, वो नहीं पढ़ेगा. And I can tell you a little story about it, that Binu Hari Kripa. Once Binu Bhave had come to ashram, and he met the mother, and mother said, he said, tell me something, what else I should do. She said, you're doing a good work, Bhudan movement, continue with it. That's all, because whatever is. Then he wanted the life divine for Gandhiji. You know the story. So, signed copy of the life divine. Sri Aurobindo said, okay, you can give it to him, but he won't read it. Can you imagine signed copy of Sri Aurobindo signed in front with a particular object, and he gave it to him? He goes and gives it to Gandhiji. He immediately says, "Hum kya padhenge," or something like that, I don't think I need it. I will read it. I don't forget. I don't remember the exact thing. Pass it on to someone. You read it. You see, if Savitri has come across us, we have opened and read a few lines. It's because thus it is so. And when we read it, then it is like Shri Krishna gave the Gita, but he did something else also. And that is played the flute. The Gita we can try to understand. Can we analyze the flute? Savitri is Sri Aurobindo's flute. And when we read it like that, with that state, to quieten, with humility, you see, one of the fundamental things before the divine, fundamental lessons, and it is so logical. I think the other day also I was saying, humility. When we go to the divine saying, I know this, I know that, let me see what you have written, let me compare notes. Somebody once told me, so many humorous experiences you have in life. So there was someone, talking of long back, 30 years back. He said, what Sri Aurobindo is written is okay, but in my opinion, I said, just hold on. Your opinion? Who are you? Even as a human being, forget about yoga for the moment. Just look at Sri Aurobindo's credentials as just a human avatar. As Shri Krishna says in the Gita, I am Vasudev among the Vibhutis, in the Vrishnis. He is the Vibhuti as well as the avatar. Look at Sri Aurobindo. I mean, just the fact that just his outer achievements, forget about the inner thing. If for nothing else, he will make us humble. Somebody could write poetry in Greek, Latin, French, Sanskrit, Bangla, of course. English, had mastered 32 languages, gave an original understanding of Sanskrit, translated, gave us the sense of the secret of the Vedas, the Upanishads. Look at his commentaries on the Gita. And he could talk about every poet in the world, from Homer to Wordsworth and Shakespeare, and with what a perfection Swinburne. People used to ask him and how he would talk about it. But equally, when he spoke about the Vedas, the Ramayana, the Mahabharata, you wonder, who is he? Who is he? So, if we just look at the outer persona of Sri Aurobindo and he gives Savitri to us, the least that is required is humility. And this humility opens a door. Humility means, I don't know, I don't understand. You should be like that. I don't know, Mother, how to understand Savitri. And then when we read with that, with the will to understand, then we will see that the lines begin to reveal themselves. I tell this even in medical practice, there are two kinds of patients. One who come, say, Doctor Saab, a problem hai. I write the medicine, they take it with faith and they get well. The other ones who ask me 10 questions, which is okay. So finally I ask, what medicine you want me to write? Some of them outright come and say, write to me paracetamol, I'm having fever. I said, okay, sure, you want nothing else. Okay, makes my task easier. But your task has become difficult because you have missed an opportunity. I could have examined scene, but you want me to write paracetamol, and here they have their own ideas. ये लेने से ये side effect होगा, वो होने से. I said, see, all these are your concepts. So people often ask, I'm not a fan of allopathic medicine, but people, on the contrary. But sometimes, people come and say funny things. Say, इसको लेने से side effect होगा क्या? So I said, सांस ले रहे हो ना हवा, और पानी पी रहे हो, खाना खा रहे हो, सबका side effect है. So similarly, sometimes people say, Savitri समझ नहीं आती. I'll give you that answer. Sorry to. Savitri समझ नहीं आती है. तो मैं पूछता हूँ, आप अपने आप को समझ रहे हो? सावित्री तो बहुत बड़ी, इसमें तो पूरी सृष्टि का सत्य है. The entire creation is here. कैसे समझ आएगी? Do I understand anything about anything? This is called humility. Actually, we don't. We don't know why hydrogen and oxygen combine to create the properties of water. Do we know that? Do we understand why plants, these leaves become green? Many of the leaves are green, so scientists don't know this, we know. Chlorophyll. So, sir, what does chlorophyll do? It absorbs all the colors, reflects green. Why does it do so? Sir, the way its atoms are built. Why is it so? Now comes the last point. So, the way to read actually any scripture, very frankly, any of these words of the great ones, luminous ones who have passed, they have given it like a supreme healer for whose good. When we look at Sri Aurobindo from 1916 continuing till 1950, the last seal and stamp, why was he doing so? We all know that, his eyes got affected. But he wanted to give something. It is his gift to us that while I am withdrawing, my children should have something which will carry them through the new creation. So, just as when Shri Krishna is withdrawing from the field of Kurukshetra afterwards, we know Dwapar is ending and Kali Yuga is started. Paradoxical, no? So, Kali Yuga has started. So, Shri Krishna knows this difficult time is going to come. So, he hands over to mankind the Gita to steer him through the process of Kali Yuga till Shri Krishna utterly returns. So, he comes back now and he says, okay, now that is done. Now from this Kali Yuga, we are going towards a never-ending ascent. We can't even use the word Satyug because even Satyug tends to come back. But an age of truth, in that sense, yes. But an age from where there is no lapse. But it is not something which is going to be immediate. It is going to take time. So who will guide us in the whole journey? So he gives in our hands Savitri. So Savitri is the guide. Savitri is the mantra of transformation. Savitri is unique among the world's scriptures because of many reasons, one of them being that it reveals to us the future. Entire range of Indian scriptures. You know where is the future revealed? Bhavishya Puran is there, where you see certain things. Otherwise, what is going to be the future? It says that individually you can find the divine and all these are wonderful things. What is the future of earth, mankind? Is there a future at all? Other than finding that which already is there, why are we even finding what is always there and already there? Savitri reveals to us the future, not just of an individual. It gives us the future of earth, of mankind, of a race, and a luminous future. The assurance, as Mother said, Sri Aurobindo brings to the earth the assurance of a luminous future. And while we still labor under the darkness, though it is slowly If we compare ourselves to 60 years back, so much changes have taken place without a doubt. So he gave us Savitri to guide us through the journey. So when we read with humility, we read with quietude, as we would a mantra, with this aspiration that unlock the door inside, not to understand what we will understand, how much we'll understand. So many talks, so many people, I myself, so many talks are there. What we can understand, it is an ever new disclosure. It can be revealed, not understood. There is a difference. Revelation is something which suddenly a door opens and there is a flash and there is a aha feeling. Understanding is what is the meaning of the word, what is it. And then if we read Savitri, actually of all the writings of Sri Aurobindo, frankly speaking, and we can read passages, it is the simplest. Maybe some of the letters apart, but otherwise, yesterday or when day before we had read that passage, the master of existence lurks in us and plays at hide and seek with his own force. Simpler than Vasudevam Sarvamiti Yatkincha Jagatyam Jagat. But look at how he's saying. The master of existence lurks in us and plays at hide and seek with his own force. And then look at this marvelous line. In nature's instruments loiters secret God. A mutual debt binds us to the Supreme. What a humorous, there is a lot of humor in Savitri. भगवान के ऊपर हमारा उधारी है. Literally is that keyword story. भगवान के ऊपर हमारी. So imagine a mutual debt binds earth to the Supreme, binds man to God. His nature we must put on as he put ours. That is the mystery of the avatar. This transfiguration is earth's due to heaven. His nature we must put on as he put ours. His heavenly portion we must grow divine. Our life is a paradox with God for key, but not the God of religions who is up there and this. God is the key. The heavens and the earth both have emerged from him. That's what the Rig Veda says, Padabhyam Prithvi. So he gives us that key, and all that is needed is to apply it. Reading alone does the effect, and if we read in quietude, the revelation comes. And even if we do not, when you touch fire, even if you don't know that it burns, it will still burn. Because it's the property of fire to burn. So when we read Savitri, even if you don't understand, if you just read it, it starts working inside and starts changing us from within. So this was, sorry for the very long answer. I don't know whether it's still answered or not. How to read Savitri, read in quietude. Don't fool around with it. And of course, as I said, that it is not something so much to be interpreted. Any scripture, by the way, when we read with poor, our preconceived notions, it interferes with our understanding. Anything for that matter. Even a medical understanding, it interferes because there is a different science which is operating behind. So when we read it with this idea that I don't understand, I want to understand, there is something new, then it will reveal itself. Otherwise, we'll always get lost in our interpretations. Individually, the mind is bound to interpret, which is okay, nothing. But best is to read it with this aspiration and read it in quietude, and the mantra will reveal itself. It is there in Savitri on page 375, as I said, call to the quest, the whole passage, as when the mantra sings in yogas here, the entire process is there. We can even read it if there are no questions, we can read that passage. How does the mantra work? It enters through the eye, through the ears. Where does it go? Into the brain. Brain is the seat of consciousness, actually, in human beings. Just as this is the center where the creator stands. Brain is where the consciousness comes in human beings, and then it's transmitted. So when it goes inside, it starts retraining the neurons. You see, actually, that's why the mother said it will create new brain cells for understanding if that is needed. We don't have the brain cells right now. Panels nahi hai, solar panels. We all know that sun is infinite energy. Somebody was needed to say, yeah, but you can tap it only by putting solar panels. It's not enough to pray. Pray is good, wonderful, but also make some solar panels. So Savitri is the solar panel. So when we read it, it builds the brain in such a way that we can start receiving the sound rhythms of the mantra, and then this begins to change us because it's the seat of consciousness in human beings. So from there, it goes to every area, to our hands, feet, brain, body, heart, all the organs. And that's why the mother also said at one place that Savitri has a healing power in it. I've seen this.
Thank you very much for that beautiful explanation on Savitri. All of them are quite ardent readers of Savitri.
Yes, I know. That's why probably it went on and on.
Yeah.
That's why, because jab achhi audience hoti hai to yeah.
Said and
Yeah. When there is such a receptive audience, things flow. Otherwise,
I have a question on Savitri. You have something besides Savitri?
Mine is this again.
you can ask again.
I
You
just
can ask.
asked on
Yeah,
Savitri
you
then. So I wanted to ask Alok, like how we do it is that we start with mother's voice and remember how we are to read Savitri to align ourselves. Then we read a few lines, then stay quiet for a few minutes to receive however everyone's receiving it. Then we speak about it, what if there is anything to speak, or sometimes some things are not clear, sometimes they are clear, so we don't wait there, but then everybody gives their viewpoint or what they have understood, and then we move on to the next. So is that
So I can tell you not my views. My views are my views. But what mother spoke about reading Sri Aurobindo in study circles, because people ask this question to mother. And it applied to all the works of Sri Aurobindo. And Savitri, of course, she has already written so much, maybe one could read it. So there were study circles where people read Sri Aurobindo's works. So the mother said, she gave a way. I mean, that people sit together, they join in a common aspiration, stay quiet. Then they read. Then she says that one person who feels deeply connected can explain. See, if you have many people explaining, then it's a TV discussion and debate. One person, because it's not something which can suddenly be revealed to everyone at one go. But in a group life, one person who will then become more and more a catalyst towards receiving. That person shares whatever one's understanding is. If one has something from Sri Aurobindo's writings which goes with that, fine. But otherwise, one person. She says once, that's it. No discussions. This was the words, because discussion will disperse. So something beautiful you have received. Now, instead of receiving it as a prasad, I'll give you an example of discussion, very pragmatic level. So in all our mandir, we go there after Aarti, Puja, Archana, we receive prasad. Okay? So there was a very interesting scene in the film Godholi, Bharat Purana, Girish Kannad, and I'm forgetting who was there, Smita Patil or someone. Anyways, so the thing is, imagine you receive prasad. Now what do? You take the prasad with gratitude and come. Now, imagine if 5 people gather together. ये अमरूद है कि ये सेब है, बहुत खट्टा है, ये पुराना है, नहीं ये वो बगीचे का सेब है, थोड़ा मीठा और डालने में क्या प्रॉब्लम था? So what has happened now? It's no more prasad. It's a food stuff. So there is a difference between prasad and the food we eat. Food we analyze. ये टेस्टी है, कैसे बनाया था आपने? ये हमारे ट्रेडिशन में, दिस नॉट समथिंग कैसे बनाया था आपने, क्या रेसिपी है, नहीं हमारे यहाँ वैसे बनाते हैं. ये खाना बाहर गांव में अलग तरह से बनाते हैं. There is another way of making dhokla. You can do that. But when you receive dhokla as prasad from the mandir, do you analyze ये कौन सा वाला है? You take the joy of taking it. So, best is not to engage in debate and discussion in general. People can have their own views. That's nothing wrong with that. That is natural, inevitable. I'm talking of only collective reading. So, baki theek hai, one can have one's own understanding and write and grow and this is. But in a collective reading, it's best if there is only one person, if at all, who speaks about it. Now, who that person will be, I don't know. So I myself didn't want to speak about Savitri. I must say that it was through a series of experiences and was thrust upon me literally. So that's how I started speaking. And then also I used to question and tell you this, should I at all speak on Savitri? Savitri is not something which we should speak about. I myself used to read it, understand it seemingly, enjoy it. So I asked them other questions. No, you give me a clear sign that I should speak about it. I won't speak about it. And then there were a series of experiences. No need to repeat them. And then I started, I was literally pushed into it. So it's not like, you see, in ancient Indian tradition, there was a lot of talk about adhikar bhed, which we have forgotten today. That's why we don't understand the story of Eklavya. क्या है, एनरोल करने गया था. See, when you read Jawali Satyakam story, Adhikar Bhed is important. You don't teach anybody and everybody about nuclear bomb making. He'll become King Kim Jong-un. Who was that scientist, Abdul, someone who, Pakistan, who sold that technology to. That's not the way. Spiritual things are to be treated with that sense of the sacred. They're not a, debate about who will become the next UK Prime Minister, in my view, in that view. So then for maximum effect, I'm not saying that one should do this way or that way, because that makes a dogma. But this, since you asked me the question, this is the way that Mother herself has said. And this is the way that Savitri herself teaches us about mantra. This is the way in Indian tradition. Mantras have always been received. And if somebody is marked to speak about it, he will get the revelations and the indications. Then yes, then there is a adhikar which has been given with it, not written on a piece of paper. This is my considered view of the matter. हाँ जरूर.
प्रीतिबेन ने पूछा, तो अगर इसमें हमारा भगवत गीता का कुछ कनेक्शन सावित्री में से निकला तो हम कह सकते हैं कि
बेस्ट होता है इसमें स्वयं के अंदर उस कनेक्शन को बनाना. एज आई सेड, नथिंग रॉन्ग, बट जब तक हम उस स्क्रिप्चर को अच्छे से नहीं, आई विल गिव एन एग्जांपल, प्रैक्टिकल लाइफ के एग्जांपल. अब हीलिंग सिस्टम्स हैं, अलग अलग हीलिंग सिस्टम है. कई लोग मुझे आके पूछते हैं कि मैं एलोपैथ ले रहा हूं, मेरे होम्योपैथ ने मुझे साइनस के लिए ये सिलिशिया दिया है, तो मैं ले लूं क्या? तो आई टेल देम दैट फर्स्ट ऑफ ऑल इन होम्योपैथी इट डजंट वर्क लाइक दैट. इट्स अ डिफरेंट प्रोसेस. यू डोंट से कि आपको कोरोना का मेडिसिन निकला था अभी, आई डोंट नो, मैजिक मेडिसिन. होम्योपैथी डजंट वर्क लाइक दैट. देयर इज नथिंग लाइक कोरोना इन होम्योपैथी. सो इट्स ऑलवेज बेस्ट अपने अंदर में we can make connection, but otherwise I was talking only about the group reading. It's best to, otherwise क्या होगा ना, receptivity चल, because all the time हमारे दिमाग में एक प्रिज्म रहेगा या एक एंगल which is understandable individually. हम सबका एक बैकग्राउंड है. अभी जो वेद को पढ़ के आया है तो उसमें वो देखेगा है ऐसी वर्सेस, उपनिषद की बहुत सारी वर्सेस रेजोनेट करेगी. बट then what will happen, we'll limit it only to those aspects which are connected with certain aspects of the Gita, whereas we may miss out on other things which are so important. I'll give you one example from Savitri itself. In Savitri, toward the end, there is this one of the Mahavakyas, last पेज 720 पर आएगा. जब सब लोग आते हैं देखते हैं, सत्यवान को, और they see the change and everybody has witnessed. So उसके पिताजी, बड़ी टचिंग स्टोरी है थोड़ा सा. तो द्युमत से ना, तो उनको पता नहीं है ये सब क्या हुआ है. Whole things have changed, life has changed, their kingdom has come back, eyesight has come back. But Satyavan and Savitri had lingered long in the evening in the forest. So he comes, and the moment he sees, he's overjoyed, but he says, "Look here, Savitri, you shouldn't have delayed him. First day you have gone out and you have delayed him." He chides her. He says, you wanted to go, you went out, but he is our eyes. Without him, food is tasteless. All this he says. Very touching. And he says that, Aj, when there is so much joy I have experienced, I wish you had brought him back. So, he almost makes her responsible for that moment of sorrow that he experienced, because he didn't find Satyavan by his side. And you know what Satyavan says? वो सावित्री को उत्तर नहीं देने देता है. But he stands for her and says, lay all on her. She is the cause of all. Now you see, there are such passages in Savitri which will remind us of Sarva Dharman Parityajya Mam Ekam Sharanam Vraja. But there is a difference. Sri Aurobindo speaks about surrender to the Divine Mother. Shri Krishna speaks about surrender to Shri Krishna. Is there a difference? Yes, if there was no difference, that is where we have to understand the mystery of the avatar. Each avatar brings a certain angle of vision and something for the earth of which he is the upholder. So Shri Krishna brought something to earth, which is very high, very beautiful, very powerful. But now Sri Aurobindo brings something yet higher. Otherwise, Sri Aurobindo would have himself said, you can surrender to God in any which way, it doesn't matter. The new creation will be done. He didn't say that. He spoke about surrender to the Divine Mother, taking refuge in the Divine Mother. He himself, who had experienced the living reality of Shri Krishna. It's not like for him, Shri Krishna is so much real. Nowhere I have seen any mystic bring out Shri Krishna with such force and reality. And the mother, how she would walk with Shri Krishna, how when she would be little tired, she would just rest on Shri Krishna's shoulders. And he would say it was Sri Aurobindo's way of revealing himself. So when Sri Aurobindo says surrender to the mother, there is no antagonism, but Shri Krishna brings something for earth. He is the supreme. The mother is the supreme. But he has brought something to earth which is good for a certain kind of humanity, for a certain level, at the level at which the evolution was taking place in the times of Arjuna. And the mother brings something which is now for the next future. So though it is the same thing, because both are speaking of surrender and both are speaking of that embodied divine. The mother is embodied divine, Sri Aurobindo is embodied divine, Shri Krishna is embodied divine, and yet there is a difference. So that way it's important to understand that part. But yes, otherwise each one will have his own journey. That's a different thing altogether. And each one must have their own journey. We should not make anything into a dogma or a kind of religion. But when there is a collective reading, I'll give you another example. See, now people do worship and puja, and you'll see in their individual rooms many kind of, murti bhi hogi, ye bhi hoga, picture bhi hogi, sari cheez. Individually, it is perfectly fine. It's, each one's connection. But in the ashram, you don't see that. There is a reason, because mixtures should not be there. It's important to maintain it. And that was something very beautiful that, I can give you an example of Champaklalji, and it sound very, but these are things which people have seen. And he went to a center, relics of Sri Aurobindo were there, and there were all kinds of gods and goddesses. And you know what he did? Let me not speak about it. He literally took and threw it. Why? Because don't mix. Mixture in spiritual life is not a good thing. Because why? Because each of them represents an angle and an aspect, whereas this is an integral reality. That will take us in its own unique way. Otherwise, we'll remain, bolte na, do naav beech mein. Now, individually, it's perfectly fine, because it's not something which should be ever imposed on anyone. But collectively, it should be centered around then one can have a separate reading of the Gita, separate reading of the Upanishad. That's fine. We all do that, and that's perfect. So this is the considered view based on understanding of how things should be and are. Yeah, please.
I mean, we're talking about collectives, how in a group it sometimes has its problems, sometimes has. I feel that, sharing sometimes everyone comes from different levels of consciousness. Each reading is done separately, each one understands in a different way because this poetry of sharing is extremely deep. Some people can't reach that level, some people are deeper in that level. So I think sharing sometimes one reveals something that he has felt him that probably gets an influence with the other.
It's perfectly fine. Exactly. Actually, you have answered it. First, that each one is at a different level of understanding. Look at the confusion it will create. Second, precisely because it can influence other. See, when a person is quietly receiving, whether he has received or not is between him and the originator of the mantra. But now when there is sharing, it is with the intent that maybe I am sharing something which will clarify, but it is more likely to obfuscate. And this we follow everywhere. It is, I'll tell you, like as a doctor, as a psychiatrist, my specialization. Now, if there is a meeting of the psychiatrist and the cardiologist comes and he says, no, I'll talk about the problems of the heart, perfectly fine. But you can talk about the anatomical heart, not about the psychological heart. Now, it will create a confusion. So, while, as I said, individual revelation is perfectly fine, but this is likely to, more likely, in fact, almost 100% likely, precisely because we all don't understand. So, honestly, very frankly, if you ask me, even the Gita, I'll now touch that topic. Gita is a well known scripture. Okay. Have you seen that much of the Gita is explained by people who have withdrawn from life and lived in an ashram? Sannyas. What does the Gita say? It says not sannyas but tyaga. And Shri Krishna goes at pains to explain. It is given to the man on the battlefield. So, if you ask my view, one who has renounced outer life is not an adhikari to speak about Gita, but it's easy to read it and interpret it because there are so many interpretations. So, for each scripture, there is an adhikar. Now, at our level at which we stand, frankly, we are not adhikari either to speak of the Gita or the Upanishad. I mean, I'm not talking, I understand there are people who can speak very well, or Savitri, let alone, or anything. So it is अभी तो हमारा ये होना चाहिए. अभी 5वीं 10वीं क्लास में मैं 7th 7th स्टैंडर्ड के बच्चे को क्या पढ़ाऊंगा? Let me first arrive there. That's why I said that. Why? Because I debated inside several for months whether I should speak about it or not, because it's easy to speak, but do I have the adhikar? So even a scripture which is well known like the Gita, Asia Upanishad, somebody like Shankaracharya, that a whole shloka, because it's not easy, it doesn't fit into the doctrine of illusionism. Therefore, it was tweaked. It is well known, documented. Kurvanneve karmani jiji visheshatang sama. Now, the world is an illusion. So he explained it by tweaking the language, not only interpretation, but tweaking the language. And Shobinda had to correct it. No, the language is very clear, straight, direct. And he is a master in Sanskrit, so he could talk on his same ground. So if people of that stature could do it, because from the angle of vision, he tweaked. In many people, Isha Upanishad, which is one of the most powerful scriptures, is not even accepted sometimes as one of the principal Upanishads because it goes different from the other Upanishads in a certain sense. So it's very important to, as I said, to be very humble and just receive it. It's okay. People will receive it differently, which is much better. And each one will have their own revelation churning inside. Maybe, one can connect it inside with whatever one is accustomed to. That's perfectly fine. But in a group, it is best not to engage into that kind of discussion because it's likely to disperse the beauty, the grandeur. I have seen it, it disperses it. So
It's like how we say nowadays. In religion, to each his own.
that's perfectly fine. Exactly. That I completely agree. So to each his own approach. But that's why I focused on the collective understanding. That's the only thing. See, it's like I may have, let's say that as now we have the UK Prime Minister, okay? Okay. He is a Hindu, he is an Indian. When he acts, should he act on the basis that I am a Hindu or an Indian or as a Britisher? Answer is very obvious, isn't it? I would rather that he acts for the good of the British because that's what he is there for. If he allows his personal views to interfere, he's actually not even doing the good that, of course, in his considered view, he may think that it's much better if the ties between India and Britain grow strong. That's real time politics and logical, but not because of a bias. So to each his own is perfectly fine individually. But imagine if he says, now I'll make prayer to Lord Ganesha compulsory in the schools. Now he is doing something very similar which the fatwas and all these people have done. That's where the problem comes. That's exactly what happened in the Mohammedan religion. Each has his own way, but the moment it is imposed, so these things start like that, and then they create a confusion. So collectively, we have to understand that there is a process, there is a way of life. Even in ordinary life, we follow a each his own cannot be applied on when we are driving on the road. I want to आज मेरा मन कर रहा है यार लेफ्ट साइड से ले लेते हैं. Can I do that? I can't do that because it's a collective thing. With
Religion.
everywhere, this is a basic rule. Religion is a personal thing. I agree. And each one must explore. I would not even use the word religion. Let us even get rid of the term. Let us say quest. Not even spirituality, because spirituality gives sitting in meditation. Even spirituality becomes a fixed something. But a quest. One may have a quest, one may not have a quest, and one is free to have or not have. One is free to believe in God or free not to believe in God. It's perfectly fine. That's your individual journey and individual quest. Completely in agreement with that. But when it comes to collectivity, there has to be some kind of a common ground. If everybody starts, nahi, hamara Islam, now imagine this is okay, this is a very harmonious group. But imagine, अभी कोई आ गए जिन्होंने कहा कि नहीं, एक्चुअली हमारे इस्लाम में ऐसे कहा है, ये सावित्री आपको नील डाउन करके पढ़नी चाहिए, आपको साइंटिफिक रीजन आपको बहुत अच्छा लगेगा इसको पढ़ के ऐसे. नाउ इट कैन गो टू एन एक्सटेंट. I mean, in Christianity it is that Christ says that I am the path and I am the way and I am the goal. He says that. So when you put that with Sri Krishna and say, he also says, Sarva Dharman Parityaja Mamekam Shanam Raja. Are they the same thing? No, they are not the same thing, though it is the same thing in a certain essence. So that subtle distinction very few people have. So it's always good, unless somebody is deeply tuned into, say, all these scriptures and Savitri, it's best to be humble and to start with, bhai, nahi pata hai, lekin janna chahte hain. Very easy. And then it opens the door. Again, I am not saying that one should do this or that, but I am just saying what is the best way of doing it.
सावित्री पढ़ने में क्या होता है, समझिए कि एक शब्द आया अद्वैत, उसके लिए बहुत कुछ कहा है, मगर किसी को क्वेश्चन आता है कि व्हाट इज अद्वैत,
What is?
हम दूसरे लिटरेचर का आधार लेके
What is Advait?
अद्वैत
Advait in Savitri. Where is Advait in Savitri? No, where is Savitri mein
No,
Advait?
that word doesn't come. That's your interpretation.
It is not there in Savitri. The word is not used because it's all English. So yes, there are many Advaitic truths, but Sri Aurobindo's Advait is very different.
Yeah, but
So the moment we bring in Advait, see, I'll give you an example from Savitri of Advait, which will be very different. On one side, he speaks about that which is traditionally described as Advait, the one without a second, and that we will find in Book 3, Canto 1, Pursuit of the Unknowable, in the real sense, the Advaitic experience where everything dissolves and vanishes, because Sri Aurobindo had experienced all these things and realized it. But there is another Advait that can reconcile Gati with that, immobile Purusha. And that's what we were other day, that one who has made this world is ever its Lord. So there are several places where he has not used the word, but he has shown every side. And I think we are living in times when we should try to disengage our mind from all this past understanding, because it is interfering. They are born of an experience. The moment we experience Advait in the real sense, that's what these scriptures are meant to give us, then it's very different from the way we have understood or interpreted. The one divine who dwells in all things, that is Advait. The one who contains all within himself, that is Advait. And all is an expression of that one, that is Advait. Now this third one is very difficult. How do I see that this thing which is happening, even this is an expression? So human mind recoils Advait in its ultimate sense. So each one brings his own definition. I see nowadays in the Western country non-dual consciousness. There you have just used a word.
I just gave you the example.
Yeah.
इस तरह के बहुत से बात आती है कि इसका अर्थ क्या?
हाँ.
At that time, if we take the help of Bhagavad Gita or Bhagavatam or something like, and to explain the things, or we try to interpret, because the thing which is coming in front, okay, इसका अर्थ क्या? तो उस समय इस तरह के literature या
so there are people very true. So there are two ways of doing it. There are people who have this deep understanding of all these things, and you can either refer to those things because it is now coming from a source. Okay, now I don't want to say that I have written these commentaries based on, because there are people who have done that precisely. But if you leave that aside, forget about that, then one should come कि आज हमको ये passage पढ़ना है. Take the trouble of finding out what Mother and Sri Aurobindo has spoken about this. Take it out. You will get the comprehensive way of understanding. That would be perfect. That can be done. That, okay, there is, he talks about, as you said, Advait. So what is Sri Aurobindo speaking about Advait? But that's going to be laborious, because you'll need a not weak, but a commitment that, okay, what Mother and Sri Aurobindo has spoken about it. And then we come, like Purusha and Prakriti is there, several places in Savitri, in the whole, in secret knowledge, but, without using that term, it is there. Now, our traditional understanding of Purusha and Prakriti is that this is Purusha. Purusha and Prakriti come from Sankhya. It is used in many. So there is the Purusha and there is this Prakriti. And when the Purusha reflects himself and gets identified, then it's bound. When it draws back as a Sakshi, it is free. But Sri Aurobindo gives a completely different understanding. Very new understanding. So when we read about what Sri Aurobindo has spoken about Purusha and Prakriti, and we can bring that passage, it's perfectly fine. But that requires a little more effort. So whoever is, organizing, they can take the trouble of maybe spending a week. It's a beautiful progress. Okay, because what we are going to read is already decided. And then come back. That's why he said one person who becomes like a nucleus, who reads, meditates, brings out from Mother and Sri Aurobindo's, because for all these terms, Sri Aurobindo is given a new sense even of the traditional understanding of spiritual things. Moksha, he gives a very different meaning, for example. Today, moksha is understood as cutting off the cycle of rebirth. Why? Because this is a suffering. Sri Aurobindo doesn't give that meaning. He says moksha is a state of inner liberation. Now see, look at the completeness. In Savitri, there is a passage. Now, normally when you say that moksha is when you have cut off this bondage, so you don't come back into rebirth, isn't it? That's the normal understanding. Am I right? What does it mean? It's a conditional freedom. How can freedom be conditional? You see the paradox. That means if I enter into it, I am bound. Even if I am free, still if I enter, I am bound. Sri Aurobindo says even in chains when you are free, that is moksha. Because you have discovered who you truly are, which is more in line with the Gita, which is about the state of Jivan Mukta. Though the Gita still speaks about Trigunas, not bandhan, they are no more bandhan, but they are the means of action. So you see, if we supposing bring a traditional understanding of moksha, then we'll again be obfuscate. Whereas Sri Aurobindo gives us a very wide understanding of moksha. Moksha is an inner, like, I'll give you another example. He speaks about self with a capital S. In book 1, canto 3, it's about he discovered the self. So we hear about self-realization, enlightenment, but Sri Aurobindo gives a very, very unique and all-comprehensive understanding of what self-realization is. He abode at rest in indivisible time. Where do we read about this experience in self? And I'm saying this on the basis of having read many of this. I've read literatures which speak about I am that. Plenty of literature. Originally, I'm saying this Raman Maharshi, the Gita, the scriptures. I'm saying with some kind of, um, having spent time and I can't say authority, but spend time with all this, that Sri Aurobindo gives us something very new and unique. So it may interfere. Again, individually, it's perfectly fine. When I read something, I may connect it within me with Advaita. But collective reading, it may create a confusion. So if we want to understand even terms, I think in my Savitri talk, several places I have spoken about it, how Sri Aurobindo has used terms in a way that changes the whole sense. Look at this one line which I already read. In nature's instruments, loiters, secret God. See the meaning of the word loiter and you'll see iska kya matlab. Many of the terms, he speaks about the deep offense of God against human reason. This is his offense. His is God's offense. And then he says with a sense of humor, to park himself in finite. So when we connect even with the language, the word meaning, it can lead us in a different direction. But when we read it as a kind of with humility, it'll be wonderful. Now, another example I'll give you in the beginning of Savitri. It starts with this: it was the hour before the gods awake. Now, it's a very simple sentence. When do the gods awake? Now, a person deeply versed into scripture will say in the Rig Veda, there is the Nasadya Sutra, 10th mandala of the Rig Veda, where it describes before the gods have been born. We also speak about Brahma Muhurt before when there is thick of night. But next line he says, across the path of the divine event. And now you see the huge foreboding mind of night alone. Mind, read from the dictionary. Night, we read from the dictionary. But what is mind of night? So, but we understand the symbol. ये कौन सी रात्रि है? काल रात्रि. Then it becomes very obvious. So, mind of night alone, inner unlit temple of eternity. Now, when we read it with that sense, the sense will enter into us and that will be much better. It may be very imperfect, doesn't matter. Now, it literally starts from what the Rig Vedas call as Aprakritim Salilam, the ocean of inconscience. But it's very difficult. Most of us have not read even these things. So it becomes very difficult because we have read from here and there a little bit and we try to connect. But Sri Aurobindo, we know, someone who had Atmasat kiya tha Vedon ko, Upanishad ko, Gita ko. The best is to go back to him and realize those things, to read from his writings. And it's very easy nowadays to search on the computer, type the word Advait itself, and you see so many shades of meanings. So Sri Aurobindo is like that master artist. पहले 3 कलर में सब, फिर 7 रंग, 7 रंगों के सपने चुने. Then became 64 shades. Now you have million shades. Computer में ना, this photography में. So he is like that master who brings us so many shades which create the totality. And it's amazing. When we look at it, it's so wonderful. So it will help us because we'll read Sri Aurobindo and the Mother. After all, what is the purpose of reading Savitri? It's not like just a ritual. कि भाई हमारा घर बार ठीक चलेगा. It's to gain the new understanding, the new vision, the new knowledge, the new experience of the new goal that he has put before us. So that's why. Read Sri Aurobindo and the Mother. You will see everything.
ठंड लग रही होगी। You had mentioned a phrase called "ek se anek."
I don't remember. I said Eko Ham Bahushyam, which is unity in diversity in a sense, or the divine one. No, I may have said, but okay, the sense I get it, yes. So it means that there is the one source of everything, Ek. And out of that source that is one, because that one is infinite, see, if one was finite, then it will create sameness and monotone. But there is no sameness and monotone. Why? Because that one is infinite. Anantoham. So in the Vedas you see, Ekoham, Anantoham. So that infinite, because the one is infinite, through the universe is manifesting infinite possibilities, which makes this creation so wonderful and charming and delightful and challenging, of course. So the goal of creation is precisely unity in diversity. But you cannot create diversity by any external mechanical means. You have to go back to the original unity. Then you can understand the diversity and the meaning of God's play. Otherwise, there is a mess. That's the mess, that to each his own. Now imagine the problem of that doctrine, which is very good. Now people are beginning to realize the problem. All are good, everybody is fine, liberal. Now what happens when people walk into a civilization and disrupt it? What do you call it? Is it liberal? It's not liberal. What you should do? So it can only be created, unity can only be created, and the diversity can only be celebrated on the basis of discovering this inner unity, which cannot be done by the mind, because mind by its nature takes an angle of approach. So that's why one has to discover it. So the fundamental truth of the Vedas, that discover the one, is the first truth. And then the manifestation in the many is the next, which Sri Aurobindo brings out in fullness. That is what we have missed, the manifestation. So people speak about discovering the one through all this, and when you have discovered, this is the end. But Sri Aurobindo says, no, this is the beginning of a new creation. So that's what is meant by Anek Tame Ekta, as it's said today, unity in diversity. That is a plan. Yeah. So we all should have different approaches. Perfectly fine. But if ever we want to create unity, it has to be done by going back to the origin and the root. But then people who found it, they ended up saying this is diversity is meaningless. So that's where Sri Aurobindo brings the bridge. And that is the supermind, where you have the consciousness of the one and the multiplicity. This multiplicity ka consciousness is now then based on Rit. So in the Vedas, you'll see these three terms. In Savitri, toward the end, it comes. The truth, the right, the vast. So what are the terms in the Veda? Is Satyam. There is one truth without a second. That's we know. Ritam and Vratam, it's vast. Vastness we understand. What is Rit Chit? The right arrangement of things. Disturb the arrangement, there is chaos. So in a cupboard, if you keep the shoes on top, books below, you're creating a chaos. Besides the inconvenience. Every time you have to take the shoe, you have to take it down. Book you will have to bend. So Rit is that there is a way that things have been arranged. Satya Dharmaya Drishte, that's part of the Yagnavalk. So that what is the way that the divine arranges things? Or if you want to put it in modern language, what is divine will? How does it want to express within me and in the collectivity? That we must tap into. That's why.